Hello and welcome. Today we're diving into a really fascinating ancient story called the Nanda Jataka. It's an incredible tale about hidden treasure, loyalty, and a sudden personality change that is just shocking.
But let's start with a question you've probably asked yourself at some point. Why do good people suddenly change? One minute they're a trusted friend, a great colleague, and the next they're just arrogant and impossible to deal with. Well, this ancient story might just hold the answer.
All right, so let's get right into it. Our story actually kicks off with a puzzle, a real head-scratcher that was brought to the Buddha himself, and it was all about a very, very peculiar monk.
So picture this. One of the Buddha's top disciples, the elder Sariputta, is completely stumped. He explains that one of his students is a total model monk, but only at their home base, the Jetavana Monastery. There, he's helpful, he's obedient, he's everything you'd want. But the moment they travel to a different region called Dakinagiri, this same monk becomes arrogant, argumentative, just a completely different person. It made no sense.
Sariputta had no idea what to do. But the Buddha, well, he wasn't surprised at all. He just smiled and said something like, "Sariputta, it's not only now that this monk has been this way." He told him that this strange, two-faced behavior had its roots in a life lived long, long ago. And to explain it, he was going to tell a story.
And just like that, we're whisked back in time to the ancient city of Varanasi. We're about to uncover a past life riddle that involves a father, his son, and a very trusted slave.
So, way back then, there was this wealthy old man who had a young wife. They had a son, but the father was worried. He kept thinking, when I pass away, my wife is still young. She might just remarry and blow through the family fortune, leaving our son with nothing. So he came up with a plan. He took his most loyal slave, a man named Nanda, deep into the forest, and together they buried the family's entire treasure. Nanda was the only other person on Earth who knew where it was.
Okay, so years go by. The old man passes away, and his son grows into a young man. The time finally came for him to claim his inheritance. But this is where our story takes a really strange turn.
The young man went up to Nanda, who was now pretty old himself and had served the family faithfully his whole life. He asked him very politely, "Uncle, my father buried some treasure. Do you happen to know where it is?" Nanda said, "Of course I do." And so they grabbed some shovels and baskets and headed out into the forest.
But when they got to the spot, something unbelievable happened. The young master asked, "So where is it?" And Nanda's entire demeanor just flipped. He puffed out his chest and sneered, "Hey, son of a slave woman, what on earth makes you think there's any treasure here for you?"
The young man was completely floored. This was the gentle, loyal Nanda who had practically raised him. Why was he being so cruel? He was so bewildered he didn't even argue. He just turned around and went home, totally confused and with no treasure.
A few days later, he thought, okay, maybe Nanda was just having a really bad day. So he tried again. They went back to the forest, and again, the moment Nanda stood on that exact same patch of ground, the same nasty insults came pouring out. It was this frustrating, painful loop he couldn't break.
The young man was desperate and realized he needed help from someone with a bit more wisdom. He remembered a good friend of his late father, a man known for his incredible insight. This man, we learn, was the Bodhisattva, who was actually the Buddha in a previous life.
So the young man told the Bodhisattva the whole bizarre story. He described Nanda's lifelong loyalty and then this sudden, inexplicable arrogance that only appeared in one specific spot in the whole forest. He asked him, what is the real reason for this? Why is he acting this way?
The Bodhisattva listened to the whole story very patiently, and then he said something so simple, yet so brilliant. He told the young man, "My boy, where the slave Nanda stands and speaks so harshly to you, that is exactly where the treasure is buried."
And here's the amazing insight. The Bodhisattva explained that Nanda's arrogance wasn't really his own. It was a borrowed pride, a surge of power he was getting from literally standing on top of a massive fortune. The treasure itself was corrupting him in that moment, making him feel powerful enough to insult his own master.
So, the Bodhisattva laid out a simple, genius plan. He said, "Okay, here's what you're going to do. Go back one more time. Let Nanda stand there and yell his insults. But this time, pay close attention and mark the exact spot where his feet are. Then, just physically pull him away from that place. Once he's off the source of his pride, you start digging right there.
And you know what? It worked perfectly. The young man did exactly that. He led Nanda to the spot, let him have his say one last time, then dragged him aside and started digging. And sure enough, there it was, his entire family fortune of gold, jewels, and precious gems.
So, let's fast forward back to the Buddha and his disciples. How does this ancient story solve the mystery of the two-faced monk? Well, the Buddha finished his tale and then connected all the dots.
And this is where it all just clicks into place. The Buddha revealed that the arrogant monk was the reincarnation of Nanda, the slave. And the wise bodhisattva who solved the riddle, that was the Buddha himself in a past life. The monk became arrogant in the Dakinagiri region for the exact same reason Nanda did in the forest. In that region, the monk got special treatment and had a lot of supporters. That treasure of status and praise was corrupting his character, just like the gold had done all those centuries ago.
So what are the big lessons for us here? Well, first, being close to power or wealth or even just status, our modern-day treasures, can absolutely change a person's character, and not always for the better. Second, sudden arrogance might actually be a clue. It might not be about the person themselves, but about some hidden influence they're standing on. And finally, true wisdom is about looking past the surface. The solution to the problem was hidden right inside the problem itself.
At the end of the day, the Nanda Jataka is such a powerful reminder. When we see people around us change, maybe after a promotion or after gaining some fame, we can ask ourselves, what treasure are they standing on? And maybe, even more importantly, what treasure are we standing on?
And with that thought, I'll leave you with this simple, heartfelt wish. ขอให้ทุกท่านจงมีความสุข May you all be happy.